You can clean the counters, empty the dishwasher, and still walk into your kitchen, feeling as if the room is already asking something from you. A cabinet will not close. A drawer catches on 3 versions of the same tool. A plastic lid slips out, but the container it belongs to disappeared months ago. Today we are looking at 12 things women over 40 should stop keeping in the kitchen, not to create a perfect room, but to create a calmer one. For many women over 40, the kitchen is also where decisions collect. What should be used, replaced, donated, or finally removed. The goal is less visual noise, fewer tiny decisions, and a room that supports your life, instead of quietly adding to your mental load. At the end, I will give you a simple challenge. Remove just 3 things today. Not the whole pantry. Not every cabinet. Just 3 things that no longer deserve your time or space. A kitchen can look crowded even when it is technically clean. The counters may be wiped, the floor swept, and the dishes put away. But every shelf holds something you rarely use, and every time you reach for one thing, you have to move 3 others. You do not simply make tea. You search for the mug that is not chipped. You do not simply put away leftovers. You test 3 lids. You do not simply open a drawer. You lift, rearrange, and push everything back into place. No single moment seems serious, but repeated throughout the day, these moments create friction. You do not need matching containers or expensive organizers. Often the calmest solution is simply owning less of what no longer serves you. Here are 12 places to begin. Start with the food sitting quietly at the back of the pantry. It may be a can bought for a recipe you never made, stale crackers, faded spices, or a box moved so often that you no longer notice it. A printed date does not always mean that food suddenly became unsafe on that day. In the United States, most date labels describe quality rather than safety, with infant formula being an important exception. So do not throw away good food only because a best if used by date has passed. Look at the full picture. Consider how the food was stored, whether the packaging is intact, and whether there are signs of damage or spoilage. Do not use cans that are leaking, bulging, deeply dented, or heavily rusted. When you are unsure, follow the food safety guidance where you live. The point is to stop using valuable shelf space for food you do not trust, do not enjoy, or realistically will not eat. Make the decision once, then let the shelf become easier to read. Many kitchens have 1 mug with a sharp chip near the rim, 1 cracked bowl, or 1 plate everyone quietly avoids. If you keep reaching past these pieces, they are no longer part of your working kitchen. They are obstacles inside it. Sometimes there is a story attached. The mug came from a trip. The plate belonged to an old set. The bowl was once your favorite. That can make a simple decision feel emotional, but you can honor a memory without using a damaged item every day. If a piece has genuine sentimental value, consider moving it out of the everyday cabinet and keeping it as a memory. If it is sharp, unstable, uncomfortable, or never chosen, let it go. A calmer kitchen is not the kitchen with the most dishes. It is the kitchen where the dishes you use are easy to find and pleasant to hold. This may be the most familiar cabinet in the room. You open the door and a stack shifts. A lid slides behind a bowl. A container falls forward. You spend 2 minutes matching shapes, only to discover that the lid is slightly too small. Someday can turn one container cabinet into a permanent puzzle. Take the containers and lids out together. Match them once. Keep the combinations that close properly, stack reasonably, and fit the way you actually store food. Release containers that are badly stained, warped, cracked, or missing their partner. Check your local recycling rules before putting them in the recycling bin, because accepted plastics differ by community. You do not need 20 containers for a household that regularly uses 6. You need enough for real leftovers and real lunches. The best system is the one you can use without searching. How many wooden spoons do you reach for? How many vegetable peelers work? Well, how many can openers do you trust? Duplicates can be useful when they support the way you cook, but they become clutter when several versions exist and only one is comfortable, reliable, or easy to clean. In a crowded drawer, the favorite spatula hides under 3 others. The useful scissors disappear beside pears that barely cut. Instead of asking, "Could I use this someday?" ask, "Do I choose this now?" Keep the tools you naturally reach for. Keep a reasonable backup when it genuinely helps. Donate usable extras that only make the drawer harder to open. You are not getting rid of possibility, you are making your everyday tools easier to find. This is the specialty flower, unusual sauce baking decoration, or trendy ingredient purchased during a burst of inspiration. You imagined a new routine. You were going to bake every weekend, prepare elaborate lunches, or try a complicated recipe. Then ordinary life continued. The ingredient moved toward the back of the shelf, but the expectation stayed. Now it reminds you of a plan you did not follow. Inspiration can become guilt when an untouched ingredient starts representing a version of you that never became part of your real life. If you still feel excited to use it, choose a specific meal and give the plan a real date. If you feel only pressure, let it go while it is still unopened and suitable to share or donate under local guidelines. Your kitchen should support the life you are living now, not the life you once imagined. The kitchen can fill quickly with machines that promise to make life easier, a juicer that takes longer to clean than to use, a sandwich maker for a phase that lasted 2 weeks, an appliance with attachments you no longer understand, a second blender kept because the first might fail someday. The question is not whether the appliance works. The question is whether it earns the space it occupies. Large appliances take over, counters block shelves, and make you move them whenever you need something else. Consider when you last used each one and the effort required to assemble, clean, and store it. Notice whether it saves work or creates another job. An appliance can be useful in theory and unhelpful in your actual life. Keep what supports your real routines. Let go of what belongs to a temporary interest, an old season, or an imagined future. The money has already been spent. Keeping the appliance does not bring it back. Sometimes we keep cookware because it was expensive, well made, or once useful. But bodies change, energy changes, households change. The way you cook at 45 or 55 may not be the way you cooked at 30. A heavy pot that feels exhausting to lift when full is not serving you simply because it is high quality. A pan with an uncomfortable handle is not practical if you avoid it. A large roasting dish may not deserve prime space if family meals have become smaller. This is not about deciding that you are incapable. It is about allowing your kitchen to adapt with you. Notice what makes cooking harder on your wrists, shoulders back, or patience. Keep the pieces that feel stable, comfortable, and suited to the meals you make now. You are allowed to choose ease before something becomes completely unusable. Kitchen textiles multiply quietly. A towel becomes stained, so it moves to the bottom of the drawer. An oven mitt loses its padding, but it stays because it still looks acceptable. Cleaning cloths collect faster than they are used. Soon the drawer is full, yet you still search for the 2 towels that absorb properly and the 1 oven mitt you trust. Keep enough for your real routine, including a practical amount for laundry days. Remove anything torn, unpleasant, no longer absorbent, or unreliable around heat. A small set of useful towels is calmer than a packed drawer of disappointing ones. This is one of the easiest places to create immediate relief because the decision is already visible. You know which towel you avoid. Reusable bags can become clutter while still looking responsible. They gather under the sink, inside another bag, in the car behind the pantry door, and in the hallway closet. Yet you may still forget them because they do not have one clear home. Choose a realistic number based on how you shop. Keep the strongest, cleanest, and easiest to carry. Place them in one container or one designated spot. Then release the torn ones, uncomfortable ones, and extras you never choose. A useful object can still become stressful when there are so many that storage becomes another task. The goal is not to own none. It is to own an amount you can manage without thinking about it. Sometimes a shelf contains food you no longer enjoy, but keep because you believe you should eat it. It may come from a strict plan you stopped following. Every time you see it, you feel that you have failed a rule. This section is not about changing a medically necessary diet. Food choices and health needs are personal, and medical dietary requirements should be discussed with an appropriately qualified professional. This is about products that no longer fit your life and now create shame every time you open the cabinet. Look for unopened items that can still be donated where accepted. Remove spoiled products. Be honest about what you are not going to eat. You can make thoughtful choices without keeping food that exists only to criticize you. A calmer kitchen should help you nourish yourself. It should not act like a silent report card. The kitchen counter often becomes the landing place for everything. Mail, receipts, school forms, batteries, coupons, appointment cards, instruction manuals, items someone carried into the room and forgot to take away. This happens because the kitchen is active and central. But when the counter becomes a household command center, food preparation competes with unfinished administration. You clear a space to make dinner, move the papers to one end, then move them back. You wipe around them. You see them while making coffee. You do not need to solve every paper today. You only need to stop treating the kitchen as permanent storage. Create one small collection point outside the main work area. It could be a folder tray drawer or basket in another location. Keep it limited so it does not become a new hidden pile. The kitchen should not be responsible for holding every decision in the house, and neither should you. The final category can be the hardest because the objects are not useless, they are meaningful. A serving dish from a relative, a set of glasses from a wedding, a decorative tin from childhood, a large platter connected to holidays that no longer happen in the same way. The question is not whether you care. The question is whether the item needs to live in the space you use every day. Sentimental items deserve thoughtful decisions, not automatic storage in the most accessible cabinet. You may keep the item and move it to a memory box. You may display one piece instead of storing an entire set. You may photograph it before letting it go. You may pass it to someone who will use it. The memory is real even when the object changes location. Your everyday kitchen should primarily hold the things that support your everyday life. As you look at these 12 categories, you may notice that the real problem is not laziness, poor organization, or a lack of storage. Often it is delayed decisions. The kitchen becomes crowded when objects remain after their purpose has ended. They wait for you to choose, and because each choice seems small, it is easy to postpone. But every postponed choice takes a little space. Some take physical space, others take visual space, many take mental space. This is why buying another organizer does not always create calm. An organizer can arrange the decision, but it cannot make the decision for you. You do not need to become ruthless. You do not need to remove everything old, imperfect, or rarely used. You only need to become more honest about what your kitchen is being asked to hold. Is it holding food you will eat? Tools you choose? Dishes you enjoy? Appliances that save effort? Or is it holding guilt, old plans, damaged objects and possibilities you no longer want to maintain? There is no shame in realizing that your life has changed. Maybe you cook for fewer people now. Maybe you want simpler meals. Maybe you are tired of digging through crowded drawers. Maybe your hands prefer lighter cookware. Maybe you no longer want your kitchen to be the center of every household responsibility. That is not giving up. That is updating the room so it supports the woman you are now. You do not have to finish the entire kitchen today. Here is your 3-item challenge. First, remove one item that is clearly finished, a spoiled product, a damaged dish, or a worn-out cloth. Second, remove one item that creates friction, a lid without a container, a tool you always move aside, or an appliance that blocks the shelf. Third, remove one item connected to guilt, an ingredient for a life. You are not living a duplicate kept just in case, or an object you feel obligated to store. Only 3 things. Then stop. Notice whether the drawer closes more easily. Notice whether the shelf looks clearer. Notice whether one small decision has finally left the room. You are not trying to create a showroom kitchen. You are creating a working kitchen that asks less of you. The counters may not be empty. The cabinets may not match. There may still be dishes in the sink and groceries waiting to be put away. But 3 unnecessary things are gone. That is 3 fewer objects to move, clean, check, store, or think about. And sometimes a calmer home begins exactly that way, not with a perfect transformation, but with one honest decision, followed by another, and the quiet relief of realizing you do not have to keep everything.